And we are back here in the nest for episode 15 to wrap up our ship series. As today we attack mentorship. We began, Joe, with leadership, moved into ownership, and now the final piece of the puzzle today. And I really believe, Joe, that mentorship is a critical piece to any individual's success in so many ways. And I want to make it clear that, in my opinion anyway, mentorship is more than friendship. It's more than just looking up to someone. It's truly a two-way street. And there are a lot of very important factors that go into a successful mentor to mentee relationship.
Absolutely. This is a topic I was excited to talk about, like vulnerability. My life has been built on mentors and mentorship, and it actually helped me break out of my shell. And I think when you talk about mentorship, it actually doesn't happen often enough. It's either the mentoree who's afraid to ask for help, or the person being the mentor just doesn't see enough from that individual just yet to get involved with it. But I also think some people shy away from being a mentor because it does open you up to some things as well. And as I was going through my notes here and reviewing mentorship, I had never really thought about it that way, but there's probably more opportunities out there. But both sides of this thing don't always engage in it or seek it out.
Yeah, that's a great point. I had that in my notes as well. And we'll get into that in a little bit. I think it's important to identify where they come from, where mentor relationships come from. I had it down as a close-knit relationship built upon trust. Oftentimes when one person and another person's thought process, belief systems kind of align or are seem to intertwine somehow. That's often how these relationships begin. I think you just hit the nail on the head, though, that in order for this to be successful, both parties, to go back to a previous episode, have to be vulnerable in a certain sense. And the more closely aligned those systems, our belief are, and the more they're willing to become vulnerable with each other, I think the more successful those relationships become.
Definitely. And, I think as people look at it, I think it's often viewed also as, oh, well, it has to be the elder person, the person with more experience or this or that. But when you're talking about generations and people being born in different decades and different times, it kind of throws age out the window, that you can actually mentor each other and teach each other things. Like, yes, as the student, for example, you're going to look to that teacher who's going to help you through some different topics, but you may have computer knowledge that they don't have, and now all of a sudden the balance of a mentor and a mentoree can actually become stronger. But I agree with you. There's a certain type of bond, and I think the person that does mentor, that they start to notice something early on as they get to know an individual. And you start to see that relationship grow without there ever being a word exchanged of, hey, would you be my mentor? I think it just kind of happens naturally. And I think that's exactly what you're saying there. It's that connection that you kind of just feel when dealing with someone, and you realize, oh, this is somebody I'd like to invest my time in and try to help them see their potential.
And there are certain things that have to happen. You recognized earlier that a lot of times the mentor-mentee relationship is not, people don't try to go out and find that because they're not willing to make themselves vulnerable or they just don't spend enough time trying to make it work. I had a list here of, I think, things that both people need to do in order for it to be successful. One, I think the mentor needs to be honest. And on the flip side of that, the mentee needs to accept the honesty of the mentor. Too often, people get defensive or overreact or emotional when they hear the truth that they don't want to hear. That's not always in agreement with what they want to believe, or just may flat out tell the mentee that you're wrong and you need to try a different way. And it's at that moment that a lot of these relationships go south. So, I want to throw it to you and ask you your thoughts on the importance of honesty from the mentor to the mentee, which isn't always comfortable either. It's not always comfortable to tell someone the truth when you know that it may make them uncomfortable or hurt them, or you don't know what their response is going to be, as well as the importance of the mentee to accept what they're hearing from someone who they trust.
Truly, I think that's times, and there's still times that I have to take a step back because I shy away from that moment. I don't know if I want to be exposed. Then I start to question my knowledge, or am I capable of teaching someone who wants to get into athletic training and asking to shadow me. You start to look at all the imperfections that you have, and you start to think, am I capable of this? But on the other side of it, when you do finally accept it, that there has to be that honest feedback. There can't be sugarcoating. They got to basically strip you down to the areas that you struggle to kind of build you back up in those areas. And from personal experience, my first real mentor was a teacher at Bishop Eustace, Mr. Marquardt, who actually had taught at Bishop Eustace long enough that both my parents were actually taught by him as well. And to make it even more special, he had built a bond with my father over my father's 4 years at Bishop Eustace. So took a liking to me early on, but he let me know. He's the first person outside of my parents to look me in the face and tell me where I'm weak, where I'm deficit, where I fail, and why I'll continue to fail if I don't start doing some of these things. And he used an example of, he held up a mirror actually at his desk and told me to take a look and tell me what you see. And as I clammed up and got nervous and actually cried, at his desk in the library of Bishop Eustace, I said what I thought, and he put all those things down, not in a way to try to put me down, but to let me know, no, here's what people see, and here's how we're going to get to where you think you see what you see.
I'll tell you what, that's a powerful story, man. And that brought up a point that I hadn't thought of, that oftentimes, especially when you're a teenager and you're growing up and you have so many adults telling you what to do and how to do it, that it's hard to find a mentor that you can separate from just being another adult telling you what to do. And it's oftentimes people that think outside the box to try to get you to realize the same thing that other people are trying to tell you, like holding a mirror, an actual mirror in front of yourself to look at yourself. I mean, that's intense. And that's a great example of the power of a mentor. I think that the second piece, and I want to add this too, that you just said, be straight. I think when mentors are straightforward in their honesty, it's a whole lot better. I would much rather have someone be my mentor that I respect, be straightforward with me, for better or for worse, than sugarcoat it because they don't want to hurt my feelings. And I try to take that approach, for better or for worse, with people that I think I have a great relationship with, particularly the young people I have a great relationship with. And I think that they appreciate that, is try to give it to them as black and white as you can with your rationale, in terms of helping them make hard decisions. And they appreciate that much more than you trying to sugarcoat things. So I think that's important. The other piece is, and this is what I think may be the most important piece of successful mentorship, is for the mentor to accept the fact that you and your mentee are different, regardless of how much you see of yourself in that person. I think that's where people make mistakes. When you're a mentor and you've got this great relationship with someone else, and you keep saying to yourself, or you keep saying to that person, I see a lot of you in me. I see a lot of me in you. You remind me so much of myself when I was your age. That's all well and good. And that's oftentimes where these relationships begin. But you need to put your ego to the side too. And the reality is, you're not that person. And the mentee needs to realize that they're not the mentor either, and they don't need to be the mentor. And I think that's where kids get lost sometimes, and people get lost when they think that they have to do things exactly like their mentor or be exactly like their mentor. That's not a successful relationship. And it took me a long time to realize that, Coach Folsom, next to our parents, right? Obviously, our parents have been great mentors to us, but Coach Folsom was really, has been one of the first and probably the longest and the greatest mentor I've ever had in my life. And for a long time growing up, I wanted to be just like him. And maybe it wasn't until, I became more of an adult and we've had incredible conversations throughout our years and been through so much together that you realize there are differences. For as much as we're the same, and every single word that comes into his mouth holds an incredible amount of weight for me, But now you realize that there are times that we're different people and we handle things differently. And if you try to force yourself or make yourself believe that you need to be exactly like that person, or as a mentor, you try to say that person needs to be just like me, then you're going to run into roadblocks in that relationship.
100%. That's a great way to look at it on both sides. Both people there need to accept that, yes, you're going to take a lot of this, but this is also to kind of jumpstart you into that position. Coach Folsom was able to help you, and you saw what you needed to see from it. You took what you needed from it, and now you've become an unbelievable mentor. And I don't just say this to be sappy on the show, but you're someone who mentors me, and you've taught me how to handle delivering honest feedback without taking it personally. As someone who wears their emotions on their sleeves, hearing something I don't want to hear, I take offense to it. As I've watched you handle different situations throughout your job and throughout our relationship, I've been able to learn that you can be direct. You can deliver things in an educated way without attacking someone, the person. You just want to address, here's what I think you could do, and that would take this to a whole different level. So to me, those are great examples. I know I've used this example with you as well. When I was at Salisbury University, a young athletic training student, the head athletic trainer, Pat Lamboni, who's a Hall of Fame athletic trainer, one of the legends truly in the profession. He kind of took me under his wing, but he took me under his wing in a not, I'm going to give you a hug and love you like a son. He took me under his wing in terms of tough love and finding a way to break me out of my insecurities and uncomfortable feelings to really showcase my hands-on skill set. And I've used the example to you. He would keep a Division III football player after practice for 2 and 3 hours at a time. And I wish I was making this story up, and forcing me to find out what's wrong with that shoulder or that knee. And even though I just wanted to quit, he constantly brought me back for more. And now I'm looking at someone my own age who wants to go to the cafeteria and eat dinner. And instead we're sitting here as I try to figure out what's wrong with his shoulder. Initially, I got angry at that, and we almost parted ways, and I almost left actually. And then I'm a senior now, and he couldn't have had nicer things to say because I took what he was giving to me and I used it rather than running away from it. And it's funny how there several chapters in my life are directed by a very solid, honest mentor. And I hope that I'm giving some of that back as I interact with students and people. But it's definitely a two-way street, and you definitely have to find the balance of what works for both people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great example. And the last kind of point that I had here is I went back and forth on a successful relationship between mentor and mentee. The first was mentor, be honest. Mentee, accept the honesty. The second was mentor, accept the fact that that person is not you. And mentee, accept the fact that you don't need to be your mentor. And the last piece is the mentor needs to listen. And you alluded to this earlier. The mentee needs to speak. And that can be, I think you have a really good relationship between mentor and mentee. But what makes it a phenomenal relationship is this last piece. When the mentor can stop talking and stop trying to provide all of their knowledge and wisdom and knows when to listen to the mentee. And the mentee on the flip side needs to speak. It is not always comfortable when you're talking to someone that you look up to, who you want their respect. You don't want to disappoint them. You never want to be wrong. You want to make them proud. It is difficult sometimes to speak because either A, you don't want to be wrong, or B, you're afraid you're going to disagree with that person or whatever. And I think that's the most important part. When you have someone that can speak, I think of a kid like Tassir Money. Tassir Money and I have a great relationship, right? He's a senior this year. He and I have known each other for a long, long time. A kid who I had to remind myself, he's not me. Like I love being a mentor to Tassir. We're very similar in a lot of ways, but we're also very, very different. And that was the thing that reminded me of, don't force myself Don't force him to be like me, because that's just not healthy. But the last part is, he's somebody that can speak, and he's not afraid to sit in my office or call me on the phone and to speak and put himself out there, be vulnerable, and allow me to listen and then provide feedback if he wants it. And sometimes there doesn't need to be feedback. It's just the fact that you listen. So I think the last piece of the puzzle that I would say would be for the mentor to stop and listen, and for the mentee to have the confidence that if you're with the right person to mentor you, you need to speak and stop worrying about disappointing the mentor.
I couldn't agree more, and that's a phenomenal example. Obviously, I have a great relationship with Tuss here as well, but I've actually been on the other end of just being able to observe your guys' relationship. And you want to talk about a young man who can take what is said to him without any type of reaction. Even if he knew he was wrong and knew you were right, he took it and he processed it, but then wasn't afraid to address you back in the same educated way that you addressed him. And I think a lot of people can learn from a young man like that, the importance of, he's not being disrespectful. He's not speaking out of line. He's speaking with truth, just as you did. And I think that's part of the building block of building great mentors, right? As a mentor, you want to see those below you that you've helped step into those same roles. And I know you and I can guarantee it. We'll see him step, and he has stepped into that role, but we'll see it throughout his life. He'll be someone that mentors others, and they will then, move on and do the same that he did.
So to kind of bring this whole thing, and as we wrap up the SHIP series here, and we're always kind of shooting towards that audience of our kids in the high school, and we challenge them. I believe you challenge them all the time to be leaders, to be mentors to their peers. So we hope that today with this episode, we gave them some more tools to learn, what does it really take to mentor someone else. I think at the end of the day, it's mutual respect, but a very deep care for one another and the success for one another. You've had some great references to people that have mentored you in your life. I referenced Coach Folsom, and these are obviously people that are older than us, but I think it's absolutely real that you can be a mentor to someone who's your peer as well, in age, in grade level, in team chemistry, whatever it is. I believe that we can be mentors and mentees to each other regardless of age.
100%. Actually, that was the last thing in my notes as well, and we can wrap it up there. But don't shy away from it just because you're close in age, or even if maybe you're the sophomore and you mentor and you've got something that you can offer to the senior. Yeah, everybody sees things differently. Everyone matures at different rates. And I think a lot of times, especially in the high school setting, you shy away on both ends of that because you're afraid of some of those consequences or that honest feedback. But the honest feedback is the only way you're going to grow.
Leadership, ownership, mentorship. Great series, Mr. Panchella. Thank you again to Mr. Kirshner for producing us as we continue to be in the quarantine here and we grind right through it. We are excited. Up next in episode 16, we're going to start having some more fun, man. We're going to start having some more fun with, we're going to start getting into some of our coaches. And we're going to start talking about who's the best ever. Who's the best ever? And we're going to start that off on episode 16 with our head track coach, Mark Dixon, Hall of Famer. And we're going to start having the conversation about the best West Deptford High School track and field athletes that he's ever coached. So we're excited to come back to you with that one and have some fun and create some great conversation. As always, Joe, thank you. And stay healthy out there, West Deptford. We'll see you next time.